A chilling twist has just emerged in the case of one of Britain's most notorious child killers. Axel Rudakubana, once thought locked away for good in one of the country's toughest prisons, could soon be heading somewhere far more comfortable. What's happening behind the scenes has left prison officers furious, and the public even more outraged. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. In what can only be described as a sickening development, there are now serious discussions about moving one of Britain's most notorious child killers, Axel Rudakubana, from the high-security confines of HMP Belmarsh to the comparative comfort of a secure hospital. Rudakubana, who brutally murdered 3 innocent young girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport in July 2024, could soon be trading a prison cell for a cushy hospital room if psychiatrists deem him mad, not bad. Currently held in Category A Belmarsh, one of the toughest and most unforgiving prisons in the United Kingdom, Rudakubana has been undergoing a series of assessments conducted by therapists, psychologists, and medical experts. These assessments are aimed at determining whether he should be classified as mentally ill. If these evaluations go in his favor, he could soon be transferred to one of the country's notorious high-security psychiatric hospitals, such as Broadmoor, Ashworth, or Rampton. A source close to the situation revealed, Rudakubana has had the initial tests to see whether he can be classed as mentally ill and moved to a hospital unit. Conversations are happening now about his future after being assessed by therapists, psychologists, and other medical experts. It's understood that Rudakubana is desperate for the move, knowing full well that life inside one of these hospitals is far easier than enduring the harsh realities of Belmarsh. In a secure hospital, he would no longer be considered a prisoner but a patient. He would have his own private room, fewer restrictions, and greater privileges, including more access to television, DVDs, and visits from the outside. More outrageously, if Rudakubana is successful in securing this move, it will cost the British taxpayer a staggering £325,000 a year to house him, nearly 6 times the cost of keeping him in prison, which currently sits at around £57,000 annually. Officers at Belmarsh, however, are not convinced by Rudakubana's act. The same source explained, "No officer at Belmarsh believes he is mentally ill, but he's smart. He says all the right things during his evaluations. The belief among many is that he's simply gaming the system. He knows that life at a secure hospital would be an easy street compared to Belmarsh." Adding to this grim reality is the fact that Rudakubana had previously been treated by the NHS before his murderous rampage. This prior engagement with mental health services could now work heavily in his favour, making him more eligible for transfer to a hospital under existing NHS protocols. For context, Rudakubana's crimes were nothing short of monstrous. On July 29, 2024, he slaughtered 3 little girls, Alice Da Silva Aguiar, 9, Bebe King, 6, and Elsie Stankham, 7, while they attended what was meant to be a joyful Taylor Swift-themed dance class. 8 more people were left seriously injured in the brutal attack. The court proceedings that followed were chilling. Rudakubana refused to even enter the dock during sentencing, displaying the same cowardice he had shown in his attacks. He was twice forcibly removed from the courtroom due to violent outbursts, further compounding the grief and trauma for the victims' families. Details from the trial revealed the true horror of what unfolded that day. One of the little girls was stabbed 122 times and another 85 times, a level of savagery that stunned even the most experienced investigators and courtroom observers. Rudakubana was ultimately convicted of 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, and additional charges for possessing a knife, the deadly poison write-in, and an Al-Qaeda manual. Adding to the anger, Rudakubana has not shown a shred of remorse. And if the assessments go his way, he could soon be living a far more privileged life than many believe he deserves, out of the hardened walls of Belmarsh and into a hospital environment where the level of discipline, restrictions, and accountability is far lower. This latest twist has only intensified the anger and disbelief among the public and the families of the victims. For many, it is unthinkable that someone responsible for such unimaginable evil could potentially be rewarded with a move to a more comfortable setting, all at a massive cost to the taxpayer. This case raises serious questions about the broader justice system. Questions about whether cunning murderers can manipulate legal loopholes to their advantage, and whether the rights of victims and their families are being sidelined in favor of the criminals who shattered their lives. For now, the final decision rests with the mental health professionals and the Ministry of Justice. But one thing is clear: if this move goes ahead, it will be seen by many as a shocking betrayal of justice. In other news, the government has frozen grants paid to universities for nursing courses, effectively imposing a real terms cut that critics say undermines Labour's manifesto pledge to reduce the NHS's dependence on overseas workers. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has maintained per-student funding at last year's levels for courses including nursing, midwifery, and allied health professions such as paramedics and radiographers. The freeze forms part of a £108 million reduction in the Strategic Priorities grant this year. Labour had promised in its manifesto to end the long-term reliance on overseas workers through a comprehensive workforce and training plan for the NHS. Universities have raised concerns claiming they are already struggling financially, with many cutting lecturer positions to reduce costs. Patricia Markey, Executive Director for the Royal College of Nursing in England, warned that the funding freeze could make a bad situation worse, resulting in not only more job losses, but impacting the very financial viability of nursing courses. She described university courses as the single biggest route into the profession and called the potential impact a disaster. Universities UK Chief Executive Vivian Stern said the cuts, combined with recent reductions to apprenticeship funding, would have a detrimental impact on training our healthcare workforce. She said, "We can't create a future-proof NHS workforce without long-term sustained investment from the government." Shadow Education Secretary Laura Trott accused Labour of not being serious about cutting immigration, arguing the decisions would leave us more reliant on foreign labour when we should be training British people for British jobs. The Department for Education faces significant real terms cuts when Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveils her spending review on Wednesday, with higher education expected to bear a burden. Health and defence are set to be the primary beneficiaries of the spending allocations, which will determine departmental budgets through to nearly the end of the decade. Within education, the school's budget remains ring-fenced and cannot be reduced. Whilst early years provision represents a key Labour commitment, with plans for 100,000 new nursery places, this leaves universities and apprenticeships particularly vulnerable to cuts. A government spokesman defended the decision. They stated they had prioritised Strategic Priorities grant funding for important, high-cost courses, including nursing and midwifery, whilst acknowledging the need for tough decisions given the inherited financial situation. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you have not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.